Um, Hi, Tal Dagore. I'm Rose, she, her pronouns, or Rose Lagoon, technically in the system, I believe. I'm hosting the Champion Q&A session tonight for our candidates for Kingdom Champion, for which the elections just opened today. So voting is open. If you're watching this, go vote. If you're watching this later on YouTube, go vote. Unless it's after the submission period, in which case, don't vote. You'll annoy Fly. So the basic structure of this here is just going to be a couple of questions. They're going to be in kind of a eh, not quite lightning round, but only 2 to 3 minutes to answer each question that I give each of the candidates. That's to keep it to a watchable length overall, since we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 questions here, and for 2 or 3 minutes per person, it runs about an hour. If we have time to spare, I'm going to be taking audience questions if anybody has anything that comes up once we finish the main questions that I have collected for the candidates today. So I'm just going to ask everybody to introduce themselves, give your pronouns, your name, if you want to relate any titles you have with Tal Dagore or Amtgard as a whole. You can do that here. And the order for the questions today, and I'm going to fuck up like all of your names here, is Arliden. Is that correct? Arliden? Okay. Naivin? Tell me how to say it.
It's Naivin.
Naivin. Okay. And Tanath. Is that correct?
Yes.
In the interest of full disclosure, I am a shield maiden under Tanath here. So I just have to be extra mean to him to be fair. So if we want to start with Arliden here, we can go ahead with introductions. Maybe we'll start with Arliden. Is your internet being spotty?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I can't hear you anymore, Getty.
Can you go ahead and do like just a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah. I tried. We'll try it again. I'm Arliden. I'm from Fellstrand. Title Esquire.
Sounds good. Okay. Naveen?
I'm Naivin. Highest title I have is Lord. I'm from Dyrebrook, which is in Joplin, Missouri. I've been Monarch a couple of times, Kingdom Monarch a couple of times, been Monarch Regent Champion, everything under the sun down here. That's about it.
Tanath?
I am Sir Tanath Lagoon, Knight of the Flame, Baron. I don't know, lots of titles. Doesn't matter. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Then we can just jump right into the questions here. And we'll start with a pretty basic one, which I feel like is maybe the most important. And it's just going to be Arliden, why do you want to run for Kingdom Champion?
So I want to run for champion just because I wanted something that nobody else was offering, and I feel like I can provide that and do a pretty good job at that. It's not that I think that the other people won't do a good job. I just wanted something different.
Okay, cool. Naveen?
So originally I was gonna run for Kingdom Monarch, and then when I found out Big Head and Blight were going to run, I wanted to be able to support them in that role. Didn't know Monarch was going to run. Would also like to support Monarch, no matter who wins. Um, but I felt I could do a good job in Champion. I wanted to get the populace back involved in making decisions, and I felt like Kingdom Champion is a good role to support that in, because you can get all of your parks involved in those champions and leaders in those parks involved.
Awesome. Tanath, why do you want to run for Kingdom Champion?
Well, thank you, Getty. I have a threefold answer here. The first thing is, I had a large part in putting together the Kingdom reopening plan. It's kind of my baby, and I feel like there's a chance that we'll be making some adjustments. We'll be able to not necessarily fully reopen, but I feel like it's coming in the next 6 months. And I want to be a part of the Kingdom Monarchy when it happens because I want to help shepherd that reopening plan. Um, The second thing is I'm really excited about the game idea I came up with for a choose your own adventure style game. I really want to run that and implement it. I know Night's Rest might be doing something like that, there's something along those lines as kind of a pilot in a sense. And I'd love to just take that concept to a kingdom level and run it. Super excited about that. The third aspect of it is I really enjoyed the leadership task activities I've been doing on the Kingdom board as the PR representative. I want to turn PR over to somebody else, if that even remains, and I'd like an opportunity to continue doing stuff like that as well as Kingdom champion.
Okay, awesome. Wow, 2 minutes on the dot. All right. So we're going to move on to the second question here, which is going to be Arliden. What are some plans for engagement that you have in mind while we can't play in person?
So this is what I've actually invested most of my time and energy into leading up to this.
Got your
The main
connection spotty again. Go
one
ahead and repeat your
is
last
just
sentence.
the kingdom game that I built. Either choose to ignore or you can engage with them, whichever ones appeal to you. So within that, I want to work with parks. Sorry, what?
Could you repeat your answer? It cut off in the middle of your first sentence.
So the main one that I've devoted most of my time and energy to is the kingdom game that I built, and it's like just a weekly game where you can either engage or ignore various facets of it depending on what you're interested in. And then within that, I want to work with parks individually to help people engage with the game. And if that's not something that they're interested in as a park, to help kind of integrate whatever they're wanting to do in with what everyone else is doing so that they can still feel like part of what's happening.
Okay,
That was
awesome.
my
Sweet. If you're having internet troubles and you want to try and turn off video or something to see if it stabilizes your audio connection, we can try that. Um, Go ahead and say something for me.
Yeah. So how much of that did you actually hear?
We got the full answer on the second pass, but it seems like the video
Great.
might be interrupting it a little bit. So I think we got the full answer there. So I'm going to move on to Naivin here.
So sorry. I have a post up on the main board that kind of breaks this down a little bit more, but my engagement is I would like the park champions to get back involved and to have a role in what the kingdom's doing. So I planned on giving them two basic easy D20 games to run a month with their park. And then those, depending on the outcomes between all of the parks, comes together and there's a Kingdom D20 game played as well, based on the decisions and what happened at the park level.
Okay, awesome. Let's see here. Tanath, how do you want to do Kingdoms games while we are unable to play in person?
Well, thank you for asking, Getty. What I'd like to do is I have this plan, which I think is absolutely brilliant, to run a choose your own adventure style game every week at the kingdom level. And the idea is that it's super simple. It's easy. It has a low bar for entry. So if you're new, if you don't normally pay attention, but you think, hey, this might be cool to join in, you don't have to do a lot of back reading. You don't have to do a lot of catching up. The rules are there for you every week. And the premise is that every week there will be some kind of problem or situation, a role playing encounter, that the entire kingdom gets an opportunity to vote on what the solution to that problem will be. And the post will be in character. People can role play it out and talk through it. And the option with the most votes, that's what the kingdom decides to do, and it moves the story forward. And then in the resolution post, it'll have a new problem for the kingdom to vote on every week.
Okay, awesome. Kind of wraps into our next question, which is about the Kingdom game itself. If you have one plan, what the story and resolution methods are. So if we want to, we can go around here. For Tanath, it's probably going to be a little bit more. Do you have any specific story beats in mind? Do you have like a setting plot that you want to do? For the rest of you, I want to give you an opportunity to expand a little bit on if you have an overall Kingdom game planned for the reign as a whole. And we can start with Arliden.
All right, so I absolutely have a battle game planned or kingdom game planned. I could probably talk about it for hours, but I'm gonna be brief here.
You have three
So I built the
minutes.
system from the ground up. It's partially inspired by what we had during the Ladies' War, and I built it so that you can have individual player agency, but you can also contribute to a faction or a park at the same time. And to speak on what Tim had mentioned during the Monarch Q&A for burnout and entry level stuff, I've got it built from the back end so that like 70% of it's automated. And then it doesn't matter when you start playing, there's still stuff that you can do that'll be meaningful and that will still affect like what's happening in the story. And I have a story set up, but depending on who wins Monarch will determine whether or not that story happens or whether I have to adjust the system to fit with that.
So two of our current
Uh,
Monarch candidates don't have stories planned. One does. What's your story if somebody who doesn't have a story planned gets in?
So my story is basically it's more of a cult that kind of puts itself off as a church. It's coming into direct conflict with the Church of Light, and they're kind of building up this like a zealotry where they're getting progressively more violent as they're spreading further and further throughout the kingdom. And they're looking for things that are hidden throughout the kingdom. And then, like at the beginning of each week, you choose an action, and then which region you want to take that action in. And depending on where you take which action will determine whether you find one of the things they're looking for. If people want to like search for like investigate for more clues and stuff, you can engage in the RP. If not, there will still be the chance when you perform those actions in those places, but you can find clues through the RP stuff.
Sounds interesting.
So it's
Okay,
basically like them rising up as a cult.
cool. A lot of cult talk.
Otherwise, I mean,
Yeah.
if we actually get to go to the field, I want to make sure that people that don't care about this still have a level playing field when we do the battle games, and that it's just the outcomes of those games that will affect what happens in the story.
Awesome. Sounds interesting. Okay. Naveen, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on your D20 system stuff or
So yeah, it's super basic. I want players to be able to role play themselves, like what they would have played on the field. Um, so basic in terms of armor rating, like is by class, with with tiny little modifiers here and there for like if you were going to wear your armor on the field, that kind of stuff. Monsters would be set in whatever story. For example, if Blight wins, he's got a theme where Minoc and Big Head do not. So I would come up with a theme based on what I would want to do, but I didn't expect two of our monarchs to not have a theme. So I didn't put a whole bunch of emphasis on creating a huge story behind it until I knew what theirs were going to be. Um, so if either one of them wins, it'll be based off something I come up with. But it should be super simple for the champions to run, and it should be super simple for the players to be able to play without being heaped down by a lot of rules that normal like D&D and stuff would throw on you.
okay, awesome. And I totally get that about trying to plan around the monarchs. Tanath, would you like to elaborate any more on how the system works specifically or on any story that you might have planned?
I would. Thank you for asking, Getty. Um, it'd be real simple if Blight wins because then the story's there, and I just adapt my system to what he's trying to do. If the others win, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but the idea is that the first few weeks will set the tone and the pace, and so I'll be basically creating my story based on what the players want. So the first few weeks will kind of give the direction that the story is going to go based on their feedback, and then I go from there.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to move kind of out of the realm of virtual battle games, and we're going to talk a little bit more about in-person battle games. So my next question is, what do you think makes a successful battle game at an in-person event? And for an extra hard mode, I've decided to limit you all from responding with, well, everyone having fun as an answer. So if we want to go through that, Arliden, what do you think makes a successful battle game at an in-person event?
I think the two most important things are balance and communication. So unless you're running a quest, you want the playing field to start as level as possible, and you want everyone to understand what's actually happening. So I think the more people that you have, the less complicated you should probably make things. So it's just a matter of finding an effective way to communicate with whatever size field you're working.
Okay,
That's it.
nice and concise. Fair enough. Naveen, what are your thoughts on what makes a successful battle game?
Man, I can't say everybody has. No, I'm just kidding. I've made quite a few battle games at Interkingdom events, and I think a big deal of it is not overcomplicating the system. Having some ingenuity and some creativity on how you spin some of the mechanics players are already familiar with without heaping on tons of new stuff that they have to try to follow. The simpler your game can be, but be a fresh take, um, makes a battle game very interesting, and players tend to remember those battle games when they go home to park.
Okay, totally. Tanath, what do you think makes a successful battle game at an in-person event?
Everything Naveen just said, and but I mean, really, simplicity is key. You know, I ran Crawloween. I ran Crawloween. Sorry, my son just got home. I ran Crawloween. God, 2 years ago now.
Duck and
A year and a
cover.
half ago. um, and I designed the entire event around simplicity. I even took the foot forward and said, Amtgard's too complicated. Let's make it real simple. And the reviews on the event were pretty dang good. And I think that simplicity and taking things that they know and adding a twist is really important. And a lot of my philosophy on writing quests and battle games is one thing. What's the one thing? You know, what's the one thing this quest is doing? What's the one thing this battle game is doing? Stick to the one thing. Everything else highlights and emphasizes the one thing. Um, if there's more than one thing, cut it down so that it's one thing, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. Some good design philosophies here. Do you
Hold
need to
on.
go close your door?
Yes.
Go for it. Okay. Just for the audience here, if you are thinking of anything that relates to these questions so far, or want to follow up with anything, or have your own questions, we will probably have some time to cover that coming up at the end of the questions here. So in a little while, just when we do get to that, I'll be looking at the general chat of the Tal Dagore Discord to see those. For the next question, are we all good to go?
Yep.
Okay. For the next question, it's going to be one that's pretty important to me personally. And this could be argued that it's more of a monarch question, but I think it relates to the monarchy overall and like the guiding people behind the kingdom at any one point in time, because that's who's in charge of it. The question itself is, do you have any specific plans to focus on or support player diversity? And player diversity doesn't just mean like LGBT folks. It also means people of color, minorities in general, Black and Indigenous folks who might choose to play our game. So like making our game welcoming, and how do you focus on and support those people? And we'll start with Arliden here.
So I'm always willing to champion any initiatives that support player diversity within or beyond Amtgard. But I don't personally have anything planned. I just think it's important for people to speak out and speak above when you encounter any kind of prejudice. But that's something that everybody can do, regardless of your position in the kingdom. I know that we at our park, we've already kind of taken steps to help include people that can't take the field necessarily. And so we've set up like ambient effects and stuff where they can at least chuck spell balls at people or just be involved in things like that. Um, yeah, otherwise, just speak out when you see it and be a champion for people who might not necessarily be in a place or a position to champion for themselves.
Good use of the champion title there. I can see you're leaning into it. Naveen, what do you think about making plans to support or focus on player diversity?
So, you sent these questions to us, and I've thought about this a lot and what I can do as champion. And I don't have a strong basis behind this. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I know especially recently it's been a problem here in Tal Dagore. Um, I know as the monarch, you have a little bit more pull in what you can do, and Fintroll made the PR position. I would want to talk with the monarchs about making a diversity position for Tal Dagore. I know we had one that was nationwide, and so they could come give us um, tips and help mediate and stuff like that. But I would like somebody who's around our kingdom and knows our player base and knows what challenges we have here in this area to be able to give advice to the monarchy team. Because I know during the monarchy question and answer, that was also another thing. Like, I'm a old white guy. Like, I don't have enough basis behind some of these issues to make a good call without some help from those people who are seeing those prejudices firsthand. And I think having somebody in the area who can give us feedback and come up with some ideas that would help us in PR, on the field, off the field, would be a good step in the right direction.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to toss it to you next, Tanath. Do you have any specific plans to focus on or support player diversity?
I'm glad you asked that question, and I had the same response when when I looked at the questions. I was like, I don't have any plans, do I? And I should. And it caught me off guard. And my first reaction to it is, diversity starts with the monarch, and that's really important. And that's monarch stuff, blah 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 blah. But it doesn't have to end with the monarch. Um, and I think that priority during this, during these next 6 months, a keeping people engaged online. B, if and when we reopen, all hands on deck with that. And I think that has to be the priority, is to do a safe and effective reopening. Let's say we get that going. Let's say we knock it out of the park. Let's say we have room on our plate to do more. I'd like to do I'd like to do a non-male fighter tournament. I think that's what I would like to do, if we can, given the reopening and all this. But I think that is what I'd like to do.
Awesome. I know there's the interest for it in TD, so hopefully we get to see that in the near future. Okay, I'm going to do another one about in-person battle games, just for like more context on your champion experience and everything else kind of in that camp. So, Arliden, what do you consider to be the most physically unsafe part of Amtgard combat?
So I think unsafe equipment in the hands of irresponsible players. So if somebody's paying close attention to the physical integrity of their equipment, they're more likely to notice something as it's starting to break and become a safety concern before they actually end up hurting someone else. Specifically, pole arms and arrows are, in my mind, the most dangerous weapons. Like, I know Dave got cored in the face by one, and it broke his face. So if we were paying better attention to our equipment, stuff like that is less likely to happen. And I know arrows, like, if the head falls off, it could go into someone. So being aware of your equipment and making sure that you're responsible and keeping up on everything, I think, yeah, just equipment.
Okay, cool. Naveen?
I agree with Arliden. I'm gonna expand on that a little bit. I think here in Tal Dagore, we could become a little lax when it comes to weapon checks, and that is a big part of the champion's job, is to check weapons honestly before every game. We tend to check them. If we do check them, we check them once and then, oh, look, they're good for the entire event. But stuff tends to break down during the games. So I think one of the biggest unsafe issues we have are weapons that we deem are good and then they're good for 3 days, and that's not always the case. Weapons checks need to be more often and need to be run by the champion and the people that the champion elects to help them do weapon checks, people who've had experience doing them before, and not being afraid to tell somebody that their weapon's no good. It needs to be off the field.
Sounds great. Tanath, what do you consider to be the most physically unsafe part of combat?
I'm going to triple down on arrows and polearms. And I'm gonna come out and say it. I don't think the Amtgard rules of play are. I think that they allow dangerous weapons in the forms of Amtgard arrows and Amtgard polearms. I think that murder chops, the 12 o'clocks, I think those are unsafe and they shouldn't occur, but our rules of play allow them. I think that bell and dag arrows are safe. I don't think Amtgard arrows are. And I would someday love to see Amtgard adopt the bell and dag standard for arrows. Um, and I think our polearms are not friendly enough in terms of padding allowed. Um, you know, my partner has really gotten involved in Amtgard in the last what year and a half, but she was introduced to it 4 years ago. And why didn't she start playing 4 years ago? It's because she took the field and somebody stabbed her in the chest with an Amtgard polearm, and it hurt so bad she thought her chest caved in, and she's like, I never want to play this game again. You know, and it took her years to to be confident in taking the field again. Was there anything by rulebook definition unsafe about what happened? No, it wasn't. It's because our rulebook doesn't require a type of soft padding and make to make polearm weapons safe in all use cases. Our rulebook does not require soft enough padding on arrows like dag and bell style to be safe in all cases. That's just the complaint I have about our rulebook, and I think that change in that area is going to start there.
It's an interesting take. It's not one I've heard before, so thank you for telling us about that. Going from that serious subject, I'm going to jump into a very interviewee question, but it was something that somebody wanted answered. So we're just going to go through it, and you can go run a little longer on this. We're actually going pretty quickly. I was expecting y'all to talk more. So, Arliden, do you have a favorite battle game memory? And can you tell us about it?
I kind of have two. The first
Go for it.
one, Todd probably knows Keldon from down in Knoblands, Little Bear. So I think he was like 12 at the time, and he was in a Warlord game. We had this big Warlord game going. I don't know if Todd was actually there for that one. And someone had almost won, and then Keldon, he handpicked someone on the other team, and he killed that specific person, and he came back and he won the entire game, and no one was upset that he won. Like, it was awesome. I just loved it, and there was so much camaraderie, and like everyone had a great time, and nobody was sore about anything. And then another one, actually also Knoblands, when Arnett ran a Dragon Quest, and like 60, 70 people showed up, and it was awesome. And there was like a storyline and like optional stuff that you could do other than just combat. And yeah, it was great. I loved it. I was being a part of it.
Awesome. Naivin, what's your favorite battle game memory?
I've been playing for a while, so I got quite a few. One was our Star Wars themed reign. Wookie, who now lives in Seattle, he came up with the Death Star basically, and you had no swords on the field. It was all spell balls and hula hoops with straps. So everybody was a TIE wing fighter going around making pew pew noises while throwing spell balls, trying to take out the Death Star. I mean, your typical stick jocks were running around going pew 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 pew. It was very fun to watch and to play. Um, there was a game we had at Knoblands where we had to capture these houses, and our team was about to win, and I was on the last house, and Hamori spawns with like 10 seconds left to go, and he's chasing like I can't move because I have to stay in the position, and he's coming at me with like hate eyes, ready to destroy me to win it. Because if I don't get it, game's over. We lose. And right before he gets to me, he the back of his heel in the air gets hit with a pinning arrow as Blight from across the field pins him, and he can't get close
Oh
enough
my
to kill
god.
me. But his foot was far enough off the ground to not be foot on ground, and I'm so thankful Blight hit him that day because I would have been destroyed. Um, and then this last oh my gosh, my brain froze on the name. The event that we run Inner Kingdom with Rivermore.
The castle raid
No,
thing?
known World War.
Known World War, thank you. Where I had this game where, because it was based off World War II, um, where sirens would go off and gas would be dispersed through the area, except the gas were your Reeves, who really just chased down people as fast as they could, and if they touched them, they died. So as a Reeve, every time gas got called, I just got to run around and kill people, like just by all right, you lose, and people fleeing in terror at this dude, big dude in a Team Rocket tunic, screaming at them was just way too fun of a time as a Reeve.
That's awesome. Tanath, what's your favorite battle game memory?
I hate this question because I've got a 25-year catalog and a really bad memory. So
Top two then.
God
Top
damn
one if we're
it.
feeling spicy.
Let's see. There was a time at a spring war where I'm always, big battle game, big inter-kingdom battle games. I'm always shooting a bow, and I see that on the enemy line. I see this hand stick up over the top, and I'm like, oh, I see you, little wizard. Ah! And I mean, dead eye, boom, caught the hand. It was Sanjar holding my video camera, trying to film us fighting. It wasn't a spell ball, and I went back and watched the video. You see the arrow come and shake the video. It was like, oh, okay. I just shot my brand new video camera. That's fine. That's cool. But it was awesome. It was really awesome. Um, let's see. I was running a game at Night's Rest, and I was an experiment. I was like, let me put it. I said, everybody who does not want to role play, and it's Night's Rest. I said, everybody who does not want to role play, go to this side of the field. You guys are like Roman fort people, and your job is to hold the fort. And so you're just going to stick jock and hold the fort. Everybody who wants to role play, go on this side. I'm going to send you in as waves of whatever I call out. So like, animals or barbarians or this, that, or the other thing. I start calling out all these different types of things that they were going in as. And they played it to the hilt. I said, all right, you're going in as stick jocks. Go. So they all said, all the role players that were supposed to be role playing stick jocks going after the stick jocks, they're like, all right, screw this, ditch. And they ran off the field and started a ditch on the other side of the field. And I died. It was so funny. I mean, that moment I love it, just sticks out in my head as such a beautiful moment. And and like a personal little selfish observation, shooting a bow at keep is like the funnest thing, especially when I bully some of my little scion buddies to like fetch me arrows and stuff. So I'm just like a turd of death the whole time. It's so fun, and it's like what I live for. And I'm so depressed that I didn't get to do it this year. There's
That's
more,
great.
I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure there's more, but I'll heckle you for those later. So we have one more question here that I'm going to ask everybody, and all right, everybody stop conversating because I need your questions. If you have a question, please drop it in general chat, and for like follow-ups for anything here or stuff that you just thought of that you want the champion candidates to answer, you can just put them into the general chat here. I'm interrupting your conversation. I'm sorry. But while everybody's doing that, I'm going to go ahead with our last pre-selected question here and ask if you have something that wouldn't necessarily just be the duties of the champion that you're excited about, planned for the reign. I know this is kind of like an open-ended question, but just wanted to see kind of what people are thinking. Arliden?
All right, so regardless of champion status, I want to start doing like radio dramas set in Tal Dagore, and I'm hoping to get that going during the reign. It's just another way to get Amtgard to people, and it makes sense for me to start it in Fellstrand for a bunch of reasons. But I'm gonna get some adventures going with people from all over the kingdom. I've actually got someone lined up for like a guest spot for the first story. But if I do get champion, then I'll tie it in with the story, and I'll do a radio drama set in the setting that I do or that Blight does. And they'll be framed as like military reports or investigative reports or tavern boasts or fire tales. I'm just really excited for it. And if you're interested in that, shameless plug, message me so we can work on that.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting. Okay. Naivin, do you have something that you're planned and excited about for the reign?
So obviously I am super excited if I was to get champion to run those couple of games a month. But I identify as a lore bard. Y'all, if y'all know me, I'm a Paragon bard, but not for singing talents because they do not exist. Musical talents aren't mine. So, and I think Blight has talked about this before, either on the Kingdom page or in the Monarchy chat. I don't remember, about creating a lore catalog for TD. Um, that is something we are very interested in. And so, regardless of champion or not, that is something, I'm pretty sure, regardless of monarch or not, that is something we're really pushing for. That our bardic circles don't just consist of music, although we do like music, and adding music to these stories would be really cool. But that some Tal Dagore stories get shared as well. So those with 25 years and bad memory can still remember some of those things.
I really like this idea. I'm just going to come out and say it that sounds amazing. Like I think about like the the Aaron stories, the Avius stories and stuff. So there I was,
Mhm.
those could absolutely have a seat at the Bardic table. And I think a lot of people, that maybe don't necessarily go to Bardics that often might, be more inclined to do so if there's some great storytelling happening along with the music. That's
Mhm.
amazing. I love it.
He just likes it because it'll reinforce his memory.
I need all the help I can get with that.
Charles, do you have something about that you're excited about playing for the Reign? That's not just the duties of a champion.
Yeah, I'm gonna add storytelling to Bardics. No, um, I'm ready to reopen. I'm ready. I mean, it's not time, I don't think yet, but I mean, I have dreams about doing battle games and stuff, and like, I'm gonna start crying if I think about it too much.
Oh, same.
I need to play Amtgard again, and I really, 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 really want to be a part of that reopening process. And really, when it's time and the right time to do it, I'm so excited to see everybody again, to throw foam at everybody, to throw spell balls at everybody, and you know, to hear Bardic lore happening. That's such a good idea. If I win, I'm stealing that. um.
I'm sure it'll
So
happen
yeah.
one way or another. Okay. Let's see here. So, point of clarification for something that we discussed about earlier in the diversity question. Diversity and inclusion rep is in a national position. There is a national head, but each kingdom has a rep. So I believe that's a role that's being filled for Tal Dagore. So there will be some responsibilities towards filling that coming up, I believe. Fintroll, if you want to jump in with any more information about that, you can. Otherwise, we can move on to one of the questions that just came in. I don't actually know if he's in the chat. He might just be scoping the text chat. Okay, no worries then. Let's see here. He doesn't have a mic, so I'm not going to actually heckle him for details. So we do have a question from Shinsei. Probably mispronounced that as well. I'm great with names. And it's about fighting companies. And it says the landscape of fighting companies has changed and isn't changing since the kingdom is shuttered down. Are there any plans to heat up company battles in the future, or focus on fighting companies, anything like that in the future? And we can start with Arliden if you have any thoughts on this. If not, no big deal. You can just treat it as a general fighting company question or something else.
So I've never actually joined a fighting company. I've just been involved in houses, which is more like RP based, I guess, or organizationally based. And I I don't have a problem with the idea of fighting companies, and I think there's a lot to be said for like taking a field with a bunch of people in the same attire as you that you've worked together with to like develop battle strategies and like how you guys structure yourselves when you fight. I think that's really cool. Um, and if there's enough interest in it and enough people to support it, I think sure, why not let people do that kind of stuff? I don't think that it should take away from anything, and I don't think it would. But obviously, at Kingdom events, like that would be an interesting spectacle. Like, I think that'd be fun to watch, even if you aren't part of one of the fighting companies. But obviously, there would have to be some balance involved because you've got certain fighting companies that are quite a bit bigger than others.
Totally. Okay. Naveen, any thoughts on this question?
So this question is going to be hard to answer because one of the major fighting companies in Tal Dagore is now gone, has dissolved since. I mean, Sol Invictus is no more. And that was one of the big ones, along with Scions and Heaven and a bunch of. We've got a few in Tal Dagore, but in terms of probably member size, it was one of the bigger ones. So until we kind of see fallout is not the right word, but when we see where those people go and if new companies are formed or if people join the other companies that are in Tal Dagore, um, that would give us more indication on what we could do, especially if we were able to reopen, which hopefully soon, but probably a little but while still. Um, but company battles have been kind of a big thing for Tal Dagore in terms of kingdom events. They're typically used quite heavily in there with balancing by putting different companies together. Um, but yeah, with one of the big ones being gone now, we'll kind of have to see where that settles before we're able to kind of put together a map of how that would work game wise.
Okay, gotcha. Tanath, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Oh, I got some thoughts.
Keep them safe for work.
They're terrifying. 15 years ago, 10-man teams, 10-man teams, 10-man teams. That was the thing, right? A should be 10-person teams. B, um, oh my God, the poison and toxicity that came out of that environment, and the general environment of it's just not, yeah, banner wars, and all this other stuff, and it's so balanced on a razor's edge of having a competitive atmosphere and not completely poisoning the well in terms of people getting along and that kind of stuff. So I'm super nervous about trying to emphasize company battles in the near future, especially, with a focus being on COVID and all this, especially with Sol Invictus dissolving. I want to see where that landscape I would want to see where that landscape lands, and I would want to see how everybody's feeling about, everything. We've had a lot of strife and anger and problems in our kingdom recently, and I want us to all be getting along and maybe introduce the idea of company specific engagements once we can make sure that we can do it in a way where we all love each other afterwards. I think that relationship building across the aisle, in a sense, in Tal Dagore is probably something that needs to happen. And I don't think company battles are going to do that. And I know that there may be some new companies developing in the future based on the Sol Invictus falling out. And I'm sure that they don't want to hear that. But we all need to be like hugging and stuff before we go back to this stuff, I think.
well, not before the kingdom reopens, but
Yeah.
social
Once
distancing.
once we can COVID safe hug.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna take an opportunity here, real quick. Do you, we'll just go around and see if you want to follow up on anything that we touched on earlier that you would just want to clarify on before we wrap up here. And we can start with Arliden. Are there any previous questions that you want to give some more context to, or anything like that from what we've talked about here so far, or responses you have to anybody else?
I mean, really, the kingdom game. uh, so I I know a lot of people don't like the complicated stuff. So I think that's why like Todd and Charles went for more like simple stuff. And like I understand completely, just because you don't want to like raise the bar too high for people that are just kind of interested in it. Um, but the way I've got it is you don't have to be super involved. You can just choose an action and a location and just roll with it. You don't have to be involved with all that little intricate stuff. So I don't want people to be turned off by my over explaining of everything and how much I quantify everything and lay everything out. Like I've taken game development classes, so I'm really, really in depth in all of my explanations. But that's more for like me and people who care about the ins and outs of things. Like, you don't have to get that involved to participate in the battle game or the kingdom game.
I think your explanation was pretty concise, so I appreciate you giving us some of the details. It sounds pretty cool. Naivin, do you have any other things to touch on from this discussion as a whole, or responses you want to make, anything like that?
I don't really. I mean, I'm always available for anybody who's in here or anybody who watches this later. If you want to message me with questions, like you felt something wasn't explained well enough, or you have questions regarding anything I need, just message me on Facebook. You can find me probably under Naivin, but it's Todd Naivin Burton on Facebook. Yeah, and just let me know if there's anything you need.
It is a glorious beard. So we're gonna jump to Charles. Is there anything else? Dang, I almost got through the whole thing without calling you Charles, Tanath.
So, no matter what happens, no matter who wins this election,
He's
no matter
channeling
what,
Biden right now, word from today.
no matter what the outcome is, we're gonna do this Bardic lore idea because it's so good. That's like, that's gotta happen. But outside of that, all of these guys, I have my confidence in both of them. If I don't win, the kingdom's still going to be in a great place. Um, you should still vote for me, but if they win, it's cool.
Awesome. Okay, we're just gonna go around for the closing statements for everybody. Anything else you want to say? Stuff you want to
That
plug?
was my closing statement.
Well, Charles, we're gonna have to come up with something else. I just want to remind everybody that voting is open currently. You just have to go to the post that Fly just put up, go through the details on putting your email into the TD Monarchy, and select your options for both Monarch and Champion. And we can go ahead and go to closing statements. Arliden, what would you like to close with?
So if you like what I'm doing, or if you think that it's a step in the direction that you want to go, then vote for me. If you have any questions specifically about the system, I know if you go into that list of documents, there's a lot of information, but please ask. Otherwise, you have two great other candidates that you can vote for. Like, they're both awesome, so I don't think there's a wrong choice. But I just appreciate people listening, and thanks for your consideration.
Okay, awesome. Naivin?
So, first off, I miss all of y'all. Hopefully, we can open soon. I need it. I need it. Um, but I don't think any of the people here are going to be a poor choice. I don't think any of the Monarch candidates are a poor choice, and I don't believe any of these Champion candidates are a poor choice. I'd tell you. Pretty sure I'd tell you. But I've liked everybody's ideas. I think Arliden's story would be really cool. I love your radio drama that you were talking about earlier. I think Tanath would be fun and a great way to be interactive online. And I believe if we were to open up, he would also do well in structuring that. So again, I don't think anybody is a bad choice. I would like for you to vote for me, but I ain't gonna pressure nobody. We're all good. So
Okay, awesome. And Tanath?
I had a joke about offering tattoos for votes, but I don't think anybody's been playing long enough to get that reference at all. So,
I certainly
um,
haven't.
um, so I'm just going to end this by saying nothing.
Oh, great. What a excellent Q&A. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. I really appreciate you all joining for me for a bit. I can't wait to fight alongside and against you again someday, hopefully soon. But in the meantime, everybody please stay safe. I want to see you get on the field. Stay happy, stay hydrated, even though we're not fighting. And good night, Tal Dagore. Have a great day.